Welcome to another episode of Unraveling Success. Today, I'm super excited to chat with Alexa Federico, and this episode is really fun because I don't know Alexa, but we have some really fun commonalities that I'm sure you guys will pick up on throughout the course of us chatting. Alexa hails in Boston, Massachusetts, which is beautiful. So if you have not gone, you should get there. And she goes by her business name Girl in Healing, and she's been in business for 7 years. Previous careers were account manager and nanny. I also was a nanny for a little while. And when you're a nanny and you don't have kids, that's a special kind of person because patience for other people's kids is a whole different level.
So true.
Yep. Hobbies and interests are cooking and reading, going for walks and seeing the sunrise, which I love that. A day at the beach, nothing more calming than water. Um, Spending time with family, trying new restaurants with friends, and hosting dinners. So love that. And I like the balance between like liking to do things that are, calming and then liking to do things that are social as well. Your keys to success are resilience, no plan B, which I love that one. Learning from others, fake it till you make it, and prioritizing yourself. So those are very good tips. So welcome, Alexa. I'm super excited to connect with you today. And let's just jump straight in. And if you want to get us started with your definition of success.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So when I think of success, I automatically think of one word, which is freedom. Coming from a health background, which we will talk all about, I know what it's like to feel constricted and held back from having poor health. And so this feeling of being liberated by having a healthy, capable body has meant everything to me, and it backs my business and my mission. And so when I think of being successful, I first think of being free in my body, and that allows me to be free in doing the work I want to do and spending my days the way I want to spend them, and financial freedom. But it truly all starts with the freedom of health and then kind of expands from there.
Yeah. When I read your definition, and it was so like concise, and that I knew like it was front of mind for you, because a lot of times if someone hasn't spent a lot of time thinking about this for them, it'll be long, really long, kind of drawn out. And yours was just like super drilled down. And I really loved your definition. I think it's one of my favorites I've read. And because the freedom piece has always been in mind, but I also think that, how many times have we heard the quotes that say like, what it's you'd spend any amount of money to get your health back, like like that as actually at the foundation of like anything in life, right? And I hadn't ever added that to my own definition, but I will be definitely adding that to my definition moving forward. So tell us first, I guess, to kind of frame your journey. Tell us, let's just start at what you do now, and then do you want to backtrack for us and then tell us what brought you to be in the line of business that you're in right now?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
So I am a functional nutritionist. You could also say I'm a holistic nutritionist. Some people have heard that term more than functional.
Mm-hmm.
And I mainly work with people who have a condition called inflammatory bowel disease, which is a chronic inflammatory condition of the gut. But I also help some other autoimmune or chronic illnesses. So really this umbrella of chronic disease, chronic illness is my bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
And I got here because of my own health journey, having inflammatory bowel disease in the form of Crohn's. There's a couple different forms of IBD. And I got diagnosed when I was 12. Mm-hmm. So, I started, my adolescence with a chronic illness, mm-hmm. seemingly out of nowhere. And that will definitely turn your life upside down. And it really did, because I was, in middle school, kind of at that like coming of age time in your life where you're already going through so many changes and, friends and soon to be in high school. And then I all of a sudden had this health issue, feeling like it was sprung upon me. And I was otherwise a healthy child and healthy preteen. So it was really surprising. But It took a few months to get diagnosed. I struggled in the medical system to be heard and seen, and kind of was
Mhm.
pushed away multiple times. I was lucky to have a mom who was super persistent and kept bringing me back and saying something is not right until I finally got my diagnosis. And
Mhm.
it was pretty full blown Crohn's at that point. They diagnosed it as moderate to severe, and I had moderate to severe. So for someone 12 years old to have such a significant chronic health issue
Yeah.
is kind of scary to think about. Like, how does that happen? And I had to adjust to my new life. That meant changing my diet. I ended up 1 year into my diagnosis going to see a functional medicine doctor because I was not getting better under the Western medicine model that they had
Mhm.
set up for me. And that functional medicine turned my life around. It was a total game changer. I started improving right away. But it was also still a challenge, being as young as I was, to be told I couldn't eat all of these foods I grew up eating and that I loved and my friends were eating. And now I was taking vitamins and supplements, and I didn't like swallowing pills. So it was a whole life adjustment. And I had to adjust, every part of life, every season of life with Crohn's. So I went to college and I lived at college and had to fit that around my Crohn's. And I went to school for elementary education,
Mhm.
got my degree in licensure in the state of Massachusetts. However, when I was student teaching that very last year, my Crohn's was acting up a bit.
Mhm.
And I just remember, although I loved the work, loved the children, I remember thinking, if this was a year from now and this class of fifth graders was my own and I had no help, this fatigue would take over. These all the abdominal cramping would take over. I would be miserable.
Yeah.
So, I was someone who from kindergarten and on, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So it was kind of part of my identity. And I had to kind of put that dream aside and say, this is just not the right fit for where I am in my life. And I put full trust out into the universe. And I just felt very strongly that something would come along for me that was a career that was flexible, that worked for my health. And at this point, I had already been posting on Instagram for fun, just talking about food and Crohn's and more holistic living because I was living that already.
Mhm.
And I had stumbled upon a few creators that were functional nutritionists and ended up getting on the phone with one of them, telling me all about the program she went through. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, like this philosophy is already how I live my life. We're so aligned.
Yeah.
And I enrolled in the next cohort, which is like 2 weeks out from that conversation.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. It was just the perfect timing. It felt very, very, very aligned, very meant to be. And so that was my base certification of being a functional nutritionist. It was a mostly remote program.
Mhm.
And from there, it was kind of like, well, I have this blog, I have this Instagram that I've been doing for fun and connecting with others in the IBD community. And now it's kind of my home base, my
Yeah.
platform to kind of grow from. And now I can take clients. And so it sort of just transitioned into now this I'll use for marketing and connecting and as a place for my business to live.
Isn't that funny how, I mean, first of all, like your background and the things that you were already talking about ends up morphing naturally the way that, that it did, but also in your line of business, what you're doing, your teaching credentials have to be super impactful because I mean, you're talking to people about lifestyle changes and teaching them different ways to eat. And I mean, all like that has to really make a huge impact with you communicating with and teaching people. So that's funny how they join together.
Yeah, I chuckle at that sometimes because there's been times where I thought, oh, I paid for a private college education for a degree I didn't use.
Yeah.
But the flip side is, in a way, I definitely am still
Yeah.
teaching.
I feel like
And
you are.
yeah, exactly. And I actually loved when I was teaching, and I would have went back for my master's as a reading educator, but I loved one-on-one in small groups. And so that translates very well since I do mostly one-on-one. And so I just love breaking things down into small steps, helping people understand. So there's definitely a good parallel there.
Yeah, for sure. That's so cool. But I mean that I love the intersection. So that's awesome. So, okay, you take your certification and I mean, really you'd already been kind of doing marketing, even though you didn't necessarily know it was actually marketing. So talk to me about, I mean, so you're 7 years in, talk to me about 7 years ago, Alexa, as she's starting her business, and like, what does this look like? How does this all form together?
Yeah. My gosh, 7 years ago when I was starting, I feel like I was a different person. So much
Totally.
has happened.
Yes.
So when I, officially started my business, I say I took the scenic route to get here because the
Same.
first couple years I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I also didn't really have the fire under my butt to really build something and build it quickly. At that
Mhm.
point, I like lots changed in the past 7 years. I didn't have this confidence that I have now. So I was kind of staying small, not really putting out my services. I was living at home with my parents. I was comfortable. And so I also didn't have like the financial need to really get the business off the ground. So I just took clients as they came. I was still nannying. And so I'd done one-on-ones and I had ran a few live coaching groups as well over the first couple of years. And since then, it has translated to mostly all one-on-ones. I
Mhm.
recently started a self-paced course last year.
Oh, nice.
But the one-on-ones, yeah, it's great. It's still, we're doing like open close launches, which I really enjoy, which will be opening in the spring, about a month or so.
Mhm.
And so the difference is, the model is similar, but I can't even begin to describe how different my confidence is, how much better of a practitioner I feel, that I am, and just thinking about all the dozens and dozens of people that I've worked with in these years have just made me become a better business owner and practitioner. It's kind of incredible. But yeah, the journey to get here has been one of tons of lessons. I had no idea what I was getting into, honestly,
Yeah,
which is for the best because maybe I would have shied away from it.
totally. Absolutely.
I had no idea. And so, I'm still a single, business owner. I don't have any employees, or really any help at all, but I do feel like I have a much better grip on how to manage things in these over these 7 years. But yeah, my one-on-one clients are really what's fueling me, and they've been just so great for me learning how to be a business owner and to be a better practitioner.
Yeah. This is there's, as you were talking, there's two things that popped into my mind. One is, there's this quote and it says, long-term success builds character and fast success builds ego. And
Mm.
I feel like that's really true. Like when you take the scenic route,
Yeah.
it's very character building. So
Yes.
I can relate to that. The other thing, it's funny that we're kind of talking about like 7 year ago, Alexa, because I actually just on my social, I think it was last week, I had a video on there. I had something happen within my business, and I was at a mastermind, and we were talking about something, and I had this moment where I looked back because something had just happened in my business, and honestly, like if that thing that happened had happened 5 years ago, I would have been completely freaked out and so shaken, and I would have lost sleep, and I would have, been all like nervous. And when this happened, it was like it didn't even faze me. It didn't like I maybe for 3 minutes long. I'm not even joking you. Like it was no less. It was no more time than that. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, 5 years ago, Beth would have been so stressed out by this, and I wasn't. I passed it on to the person that I knew needed to take care of this. I knew this person was capable, and I knew I didn't need to worry about it. I knew I was okay. Like it was fine, and I had done the work I needed to do, and that however it worked out, like it's all good. I don't care. Like, I mean, I care, but I'm good. And I just had that moment where I'm like, a lot of times when we do have the scenic route, like your forward motion is so like little tiny step by little tiny step by little tiny step. But then you do get to the 5 years or the 7 years, and you look back and you're like, holy cow. And you don't realize how far you've gone because very little time do I spend like, putting my head up and actually like looking behind me. I'm always like looking at, forward. And so it's kind of fun to see those moments where you realize like how far you've come.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I love that. And also to think that you even have the problems that you do now is
Mhm.
because you've grown so much.
Yeah,
5 years ago you may not have even had that problem because
totally.
you are today. So that's pretty cool to think
Yeah,
about.
yeah. Um, Kind of a weird question, I guess, but what in your 7 years has been like your favorite failure, the thing that you've gotten like the most mileage out of from, because I feel like some of my biggest fails have been like such incredible learning experiences. I wouldn't actually trade the failure for the lesson that I ended up getting from it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is such a good question. Oh my gosh. I love how you phrase that too, your favorite failure. Um okay, I think favorite failure. Okay, this is more of like a general thing, but I think the misconception that putting something out there and letting it kind of sit, that people like come running for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it's less of like a one moment, but kind of a mindset thing. And I'm glad I didn't let that shake me because I've put things out there, both my one-on-one, practices and even things now. I'll launch things sometimes and they don't take off like I thought they would. I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
am I in the? Like, I used to want to think, am I in the wrong place? Am I doing the wrong thing? What does this mean?
right.
Who am I? All the imposter syndrome things.
Yeah,
But I think that mentality of putting something out there and it being like, oh crap, this is not what I thought it was going to be,
right.
which is a failure, but an incredible learning experience as
Yeah.
well.
I feel like, I mean, I guess I really am of the mindset of like, it's a win or learn. Like, okay, so then what are you going to learn from it? And it's stuff with like launches too. It could be just the like wording, or maybe it was launch was on a date that,
Mm-hmm.
everybody had spring break, or, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many complexities to it, but you're right. Like, the having a good bounce back factor and just, keeping at it. Like, yeah, I like
Yeah. And having to, so in both your example and mine, like kind of taking the emotion out of it is something that
that.
has been something I've had to learn, like someone not jumping at the bit when you promote something or
Yeah.
you tell them about your offer and them not, running to give you their
Yeah.
money. It's so easy to let your emotions and your ego, I guess it's really your ego, get hurt and think that, oh, this thing stinks.
Yeah.
And so you have to look at it like analytically. Oh, maybe it was time of year. Maybe my messaging was off.
Right.
There and something else. You have to really put on your business hat and not your personal hat.
I also think too, it's it I think that women, and you would be an amazing one for feedback on this in general. I mean, that can be perceived as a rejection. And I feel like women are just, um, are built a bit different in the way of how you perceive and receive what would it feels like to be, rejected with something like that. Your offer was rejected, or like I'm in insurance, so like my quote was rejected. Um, and so just kind of knowing like you have to protect your heart a little bit in business on the front end and know how to frame it in a way where it doesn't turn into like a personal thing. But that's all stuff that, I mean, yeah, because it can impact. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. It can impact in other ways, right? Like you start, holding on to it in whatever area of your body is holding on to something, and then it can come on all different sideways ways too.
Absolutely, yeah. Emotions get stored. I believe your body hears your beliefs and your thoughts, the things you say over and over. So
Absolutely.
for sure, yeah, it has the potential to get out of control if we don't nip it in the bud.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit from your client perspective. So you're seeing people as a functional nutritionist. I'm sure. Do you see only people that have a variety of IBS, or are you seeing people? Are you only doing that, or are you seeing other issues as well?
It's mostly IBD, some
Okay.
IBS as well. So
Yeah.
pretty exclusively gut issues.
Okay.
Once in a while, I'll have someone else under the chronic illness umbrella, but I think just due to my story and
Yeah.
my marketing, gut issues are
Well, and it's
my.
smart to niche like you have. Tell me a little bit about your clients. Like when they come to you, what would you say are some of like the most common like gaps in knowledge that you are finding with the people that you're working with?
Yeah, I would say first that their body has the ability to heal and back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just a lot of people don't, there's lots of reasons for this, but are just unaware of how self-regulating the body is and how
Yeah.
much it's always striving for balance and for peace and harmony inside.
Yeah.
And, I think it's a combination of our modern worlds. We're all, as a whole, very disconnected from ourselves. The
Mm-hmm.
noise of work and all these other things consume us. And most people just aren't in tune to their body and how it's feeling. We kind of cover that up with more coffee and running faster on the hamster wheel and all of that. So I think it's a combination of like the modern lifestyle, but also when you do get ill, you're not told. I mean, none of my clients, I certainly wasn't either, are ever told, hey, your body wants to heal. It's capable if we give it the right tools. Certainly some things are chronic and incurable, but there's a lot of healing that can still happen. There's a lot of
Yeah.
progress we can make. And, getting a chronic illness diagnosis is so dark and daunting that you're like, oh my gosh, I have this for the rest of my life. I'm going to need all these heavy medications and I can't eat what I want. I'm always going to be tired. And it just sounds like your life is over. So I get a lot of newly diagnosed and in severe flare-ups because they're coming right off of getting this diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of my clients. And so, one, they're scared. They're not aware because they can't really see outside of the tunnel that they're in right now. So they're unaware of just how much healing potential is ahead of them. So I think just understanding like how miraculous the body is, how much it wants to heal and bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
Conception. And just another one is how your just basic everyday movements, routines, and choices that you make influence how you feel. Because that's what I do, a lot of foundational work. I'm not doing a ton of deep digging with my clients. Sometimes we'll do some GI, like stool testing, and get a little deeper picture. But working with my clients for 3 months at a time, we are doing foundational health things. We're building up their pillars that are going to carry them through their life. We're talking strategies and just everyday choices, and people really see past that, and just think that they have it down pat because of course it's so easy, but
Mm-hmm.
most people's foundations of health are not super solid.
Yeah.
So anything you try to do after that just will not be that long lasting because you can't build on a shaky foundation and expect it to really last.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny you talked about movement and routines. And so one of the things that I am like super dedicated to is I have a really like specific morning routine, and I'm very uncompromising about it. And so when I'm at home, like it is like, I mean, I'll give you like a little snapshot, but it's like I'm up at 4:10. I kickbox in the morning. It's like a rotation thing, but it's like Monday through Saturday. I'm in there, and whatever we're doing for that day, I'm doing that. And then I come home and I have like a time where I do a devotional. I do some journaling. I write out gratitude. I write out my day and my to-dos. And I like sit and sip coffee, but I very much am not like I am not rushed, and I will not rush myself in the morning at all. So I have built in a lot of like slack in my morning. And then when I'm done with my morning routine, like I have a little mentorship video I listen to and journal to, and then I go and then get ready. But I don't take any meetings in the agency until 9 in the morning. Even though I'm up at 4:10. So I have like a long time, a long runway of like just like taking time to be and like be calm. And so I started noticing, so that, I mean, that keeps me like, even though I'm up early, I will tell you I have so much energy through the day, and I don't like, I get good sleep, and mostly. Anyway, I travel a lot, and I love to travel, and travel hates me. So speaking about to the routine piece of this is one of the things I've learned about myself is that when I travel a ton, and it's mostly air traffic, but it's in general, it applies in all ways, but it's really significant in air. my lymphatic system hates me. So when I meet with my functional medicine person or my functional nutritionist, she reviews my travel schedule and will adjust my supplements according to where I'm going, how long I'm gone, how many travel days I have in a row to make sure that I'm supported and like I'm not blowing out my adrenals again or something. And so it's really interesting because I think when you get to that point where you really do realize that your body does want to heal and that it does have the ability to heal, then you start to tune in and you realize these little funny things about each one of us that's individual. Um, it's just so interesting because I told a friend of mine, this was years ago when I was lifting a lot at that time in my life, and she was having some like aches and pains from lifting, and I remember telling her, you better listen to your body when it's whispering because you don't want it to start screaming at you. And she is like one of those girls that just balls to the walls, right? So she didn't listen to me. And it was probably within 3 months, she was laid up for a long time because she had some pretty significant back issues. Um, so from overuse and lifting and all that good stuff. So I think that's another thing, which you probably run into all the time, is like listen to the whispers because
Mhm.
they don't just go away if you just keep doing the thing.
Yes. No, such a good point. I've said that too. It's so true. They don't go away if we ignore them. And they're going to scream at you. They're going to blow into something else when they could have been much smaller concerns to deal with. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I always say like these little signs and symptoms are the language of the body, and it's a gift that we have this line of
Yes.
communication,
Yeah.
right? Like we can't speak words to our body, or they can't. I'll reverse that. Your body can't speak words to you, but these little feelings of being off or you're not recovering well, the fatigue, the belly aches, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
those are the little whispers saying, hey, something's not quite right. Let's readjust. We need to do a little audit here and see what isn't working.
Yeah. Which is funny because it brings me back. It brings me back to one of the things that you said towards the beginning of when we first started talking about how your mom was your advocate. And that is, I think, something, especially when you are in like the Western medicine, like I don't even know what to call that. When you're doing Western medicine, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think there's a time and a place for it, but I do think one of the things that a lot of people run into with Western medicine in specific is that that they don't advocate for themselves enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably there are a lot of people that feel like, well, I'm not the one that's the doctor. And so we kind of discount what we're feeling or thinking or what we're seeing, even because we feel like we're just going to leave it into the hands of the expert. But I'll share this funny saying that my aunt used to always say. And she's like, I might not have a PhD, but I have a PhD on me,
Right.
meaning like she knows herself. And I feel like that's like a good like rule of thumb for us to think about ourselves. Like,
Absolutely. That is so good.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very intimidating if you're in the room with a doctor or multiple doctors and
Mm-hmm.
you feel like something's off, but you don't have the knowledge, to really put your finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what that's called, this feeling. You just know something's a little bit off. But on their end, especially if they're looking at like symptoms and labs and nothing really out of the ordinary is coming up, you may be told that nothing is wrong or give it more time. And even if you feel like something's off, it's easy because you're in the presence of someone who is the expert, and so you're like, all right, well, I guess they're right. Maybe it is in my head, maybe it is nothing.
Yeah.
So it's certainly, I mean, that was my default. I am someone from a young age who was not I never liked to rock the boat. I did not want to speak up. That has changed drastically because of all of the things I've been
Yeah.
through, and I will happily speak up anytime.
Yep.
That was not my like MO at all.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that my mom spoke up many times for me and pushed and pushed and pushed, because I wouldn't have. I would have said, yeah, I'm not feeling well, but okay, like I'll just leave.
For
And
real.
that you
Yeah.
really have to advocate for yourself in any model, but certainly the Western medicine model that, most of us are in and, use for our basic healthcare. You just have to, getting second opinions, asking questions, keep pushing, keep questioning,
Yeah.
keep uncovering. You just have to be your own advocate. It's the only way, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. Let's talk a little bit about, and we've kind of, I mean, I feel like what we were just talking about kind of leads naturally into this question, but what are you seeing with your clients with, how their physical health is impacting their mental health?
It is definitely directly correlated.
Mm-hmm.
So I've said this before, like I've shared this on Instagram. And when I start working with a client to when they complete 3 months of working with me,
Mm-hmm.
I say there's like this glow. And that's really the best
Yep.
way I can describe it. Like from that first session, I think about them. And then that last session when we're talking about, all the things they've accomplished, where they are now, what they're focused on, going forward. And I swear there is this glow that they did not have on day one.
Yeah.
And they're sitting in front of me, on the screen. But they are empowered. They have this whole set of tools they can use to keep their health maintained, and they know how to pivot if things change.
Mm-hmm.
And they've now seen their body improve in many different ways, so that hope and faith is restored in
Yeah.
themselves. So the physical health is a direct key to better mental and emotional health as well. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really like a hierarchy of needs sort of thing. Like if
Yeah.
your physical needs are not met, you're in survival mode. You're just trying to make it through the day with having enough energy or to, be able to digest your food. It's a dark place to be. It's really tough, and you don't really have the capacity to think, all right, let me think positively. Let me see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's really hard to see past that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're scared too. All the unknowns of surgery, medications.
Yeah.
I have kids. I have a husband. It's hard. So yeah, the journey of healing physically and then having that expansion to be healthier mentally and emotionally, I see it across all of my clients, but especially those that come in with those more significant flare-ups where their disease or whatever they're dealing with is super active, and
Mhm.
they're really struggling. By the end of those 3 months, like the glow and the confidence that they have makes me smile. I never get sick of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And even just have like regaining like confidence in their own body. You know what I mean? We're
Yes.
not talking like being willing to be in front of a swimsuit, but just knowing you can
Right.
trust that it actually like that your body has the capability of trust, healing, and like it's working for you, actually not against you type of thing, and knowing how to make that work.
Yes, and I say that a lot. Your body's always working for you,
Yeah.
not against you. And especially if someone is dealing with something chronic or autoimmune, I mean, the way we define that is your body is attacking your own healthy cells.
Yeah.
So off the bat, we're told, okay, we're against our own body here. Like the enemy is us. And so I
Mhm.
just think that sets us up to not be on the healthiest mindset track. So I
Yeah,
do infuse some mindset and belief work with my
for sure.
clients and tell them, sure, on paper, maybe that is happening, but your body didn't turn on you for no reason. There were things that turned on what is going on that activated it.
Mhm.
And it's your body's always striving to keep you alive and healthy. So it's not
Yeah.
really your body, fighting you. There was a reason behind it.
Yep.
And we're only going to reach the goals we want to reach if we're on the same team as our body and we work
Yeah.
together.
So good. Yeah, that's really good. I love that. So tell me some of the ways that you personally prioritize health, and then some of the ways that you suggest for the niche clientele that you work with to prioritize themselves. Like I know some of the things that you listed in hobbies and interests. Like I can tell that you do a good job of this as like a whole being. But so yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll say first and foremost, not surprisingly, food is a huge pillar of wellness for me. I mean, it's what keeps my Crohn's and very happy and my body healthy and strong as a whole. So I spend time meal prepping. I buy, whole food grocery carts, like all my stuff is healthy. Even if it's really basic. Like I often just make a protein, starch, and a veggie for dinner. Like it's not always fancy, but I just stick to to what I know, to what my body can understand and use. So every day fueling with healthy foods is definitely my absolute number one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, being a business owner and also being someone who has a condition that can be aggravated by stress, doing
Mm-hmm.
things that helps you manage stress. I know that's like such a catchphrase, manage stress, and it gets so much deeper than that. But things that are nourishing to my nervous system
Mm-hmm.
and help me manage stress, like daily walking or movement in some way, is just an absolute must. And I will say sometimes in the winter, like there are days that that doesn't happen because it's freezing or I'm just have low energy and I do not feel as well.
Yeah.
So that physical movement, and I think there's like an energetic component to it as well. Like you're moving the energy around because I think that
Mm-hmm.
can get stuck and make us feel stagnant in life.
Totally.
So I love that like physical movement. So definitely the food, definitely the physical movement. And as I've gotten older, I guess more into spirituality slash mindset and beliefs, doing practices that support a healthy mindset and a healthy belief in myself have been really helpful. So I do EFT quite a bit, the emotional freedom technique, or tapping.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on affirmations and just like I wake up or I'll be walking into the kitchen and just saying affirmations to myself or just writing them
Yep.
down. Journaling. I have many journals full of me scripting about my ideal life and how I feel and how my business is running and kind of like really visualizing that and sitting in what that feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So something for the physical body, something for the mental health, something for my spiritual side. I think that kind of combining those components makes a well-rounded day for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. That's really good. One of the things on affirmations is one of the thoughts I've always had is like, we all have kind of an inner bully in our head. I mean, like we all have one. And some are bigger than others. Have had a couple employees where I've like had them actually even like name the bully in their head because it was just like so loud. Actually, this actually even reminds me of my son, because my son has like an inner voice that can be really like loud to him. And so I'm always like, I think that like it to counter it, I used to always be like, you don't need to listen to yourself, you need to talk to yourself. Like like the words to counter the bully in your head need to come out of your mouth, because if they come out of your mouth, you're speaking them, but you're hearing them. So it's like they might be in your head, but you can counter it, like you can double down on it by being like, no,
I love that. I've heard that before. That's
yeah,
great.
listen here, whatever the bully's name is. like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then that puts agency back in your hands, that you don't have
yeah,
to succumb to whatever that inner bully is saying. It gives you agency to counter. Like this
yeah,
is a two-way conversation.
yeah. Or like, you don't get to talk about my friend like that, like, yeah, no, I do think, and there's such a power in like our tongue and the things that we say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's very true.
Yeah.
So
And I didn't answer your second part of your
yeah,
question about strategies for, was it strategies for people who are my typical clientele?
yeah, yeah.
I will say two things are the off the bat must knows. One is I'll dial it in a little bit more. Your routines and practices around eating are very important.
Mm,
And so what I tell my clients is that we're going to make eating a ritual again. We're going to make it an experience. It's not something that we're just eating on the fly, in the car, during a meeting. We are actually going to make time to eat again, because our bodies depend upon us to be in the rest and digest mode in order to properly break down food. And so because digestion works from top to bottom, meaning everything that's going on in our brain, if we're able to interpret that food is coming down and send the signals for our stomach to get ready, that happens in rest and digest. So if we eat super fast and the body's not prepared, well, the enzymes aren't there waiting for us to start acting on our food to break them down. The stomach acid
yeah,
not all fired up. And because digestion's top to bottom, there's not really any remediating that. It's sort of, you kind of sabotage digestion from the start. Well, that might be why you have a lot of bloat or constipation or loose stool or gas, because your food wasn't properly broken down because you didn't set the scene for eating. So I like to talk about eating as a practice, a ritual, engaging your senses, chewing really slowly, savoring the taste, doing some deep breaths before you actually start to eat,
Mm-hmm.
are all really basic things, but most people don't make time to do that. But that can be really game changing. And then the second one is sticking to whole foods. And again, I guess not surprising from a nutritionist, but when in doubt, when it comes to diet, because there are so many ways that you can go with diet, but to start, just stick to the whole food groups. I really love paleo as a general template, and then people can make tweaks based on that. But it's great because it just prioritizes things that are grown in the ground, or on a farm, raised on a farm, caught in the ocean, which is kind of a phrase I use. Like, make most of your food from those sources, and
Yeah.
you'll be golden.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And I love that. My husband loves paleo, and yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's really sound advice. Like, it's foundational.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Alexa, thank you so much for joining me. It was such a great conversation. I know when I first was reading about you, I was like, oh, this is going to be super fun because um, this is a practice that's near and dear to my heart. Um, so if you would like to learn more about Alexa, all of her contact information is going to be in our show notes. So please don't hesitate to reach out from her. She is a wealth of knowledge for sure. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.